Within a network of people, there's often one or two main points of contact. People who know the network, people who know the direction a movement is taking. And Chris Thoreau seems to be one of those nodes in the network for the urban gardening scene in Vancouver, if that makes any sense. So usually I'm able to condense an interview into a 3 or 4 minute video clip, but with Chris, I couldn't really edit it down to anything shorter than 10 minutes.
There's about 18 urban farms in the city. So that would include like non-profits that are using the stuff to fund programs or just as educational opportunities. Folks like myself and Ward who are just basically small businesses, and then others that are sort of in between the two, because a lot of people are interested in doing for-profit stuff with a strong social aspect, even though I think we all have a strong social aspect by contributing to the local food system. And so there's a lot of energy right now. The forum, I think, will be another good chance to sort of solidify all these relationships that are being built. The other thing is, hopefully what everybody's doing is going to lead the way for new people to enter the urban farming realm. And you need a certain critical mass of people doing something to really make it happen. And with a relatively small group of people, we're actually doing quite well. Got some pretty good support from the city and a few organizations in terms of grants and whatnot. We've got a very active listserv with good participation, not only from urban farmers, but we've got a city councillor on there who regularly contributes, who will also be at the forum.
Is that Ladner? Or?
Peter Ladner he's on there. He doesn't chime in as much, but he'll be at the forum. Andrea Reimer's another city councillor who will be there. We've got Michael Abelman coming to speak at the forum as well. So we've done a fairly good job, I think, of getting people connected and working together and somewhat on the same page. There's a bit of, a few adversaries in the group, but nothing. Most people are just, they're busy and they're happy to see things happening, and they're basically doing what they can to support it in whatever way they can. And it seems to me in the last year like there's a lot of connection between these different farms that wouldn't have happened if we weren't really trying to get them connected. So, besides doing my sprouting thing, we run a little bike-powered produce delivery company. So we've been buying from urban farms, and I've had extra sprouts some weeks that I haven't been able to sell, so I've given them to urban farms to put into their CSAs. We're sharing fridge space with another urban farm and sharing resources. Other urban farms are working together to do farmers markets and market their produce. So there's a lot of that happening, and that was sort of one of the goals of getting people together. Those urban farms are more sustainable because of that, because they've got a larger pool of resources to draw from. So it's not even been a year now since the first meeting. Things are actually moving along very, very well. So I'm a very big advocate of, finding out who all the players are and getting them together.
Any urban economy is based on agglomeration, and Detroit, there's one car manufacturer, and then there's someone to supply the parts to that car manufacturer, and there's a guy who starts servicing cars, and then a salesman, and someone who brands the cars, and you kind of need that critical mass.
Yeah. What's interesting in Seattle was that there's no network there of urban farms, yet the city has taken the initiative to push this policy in place. So here it's coming from the ground up, there it's coming from top down, which is great because urban farmers seem to think it was good. And Nicole was telling me she was really involved in helping with the ordinances and giving feedback on wording and how things would work from a practical level. So there's a really good example of a top-down policy that worked fairly well, or it's seeming to work fairly well. Even though all these farms are basically working very independently as well. This is our farm, that's your thing, great. And so last year, as an undergrad thesis project, and having done quite a bit of urban ag work in the past 10 years and the past 2 years here, it's like, well, we need to be a better community. We need to work together in order to basically meet shared goals. And so last November, we basically put word out to all the urban farmers and food security advocates and all the food people basically to start to look at this. And we actually had our inaugural meeting here. So we had 50 people out for that, and had a dinner and basically did introductions, got everybody to meet everyone else, learn a little bit about everyone else's projects. And then had a little bit of brainstorming session in terms of like, what do you as an urban farmer need to be successful? And sort of made a list of things. And from that, things have really grown. We had another brainstorming session in January, a few months later. Will Allen was here around that same time, so he came and spoke. We had a really good sort of intimate Q&A session with him. Through that, got to present what we were doing to City Council, so it's really on their radar. And then that second brainstorming session helped identify sort of more issues that would need to be addressed in the short and long term in terms of making the network that we were developing more successful. And then from April until now, we've been actually doing monthly urban farmer gatherings. So we've also got a newsletter, a listserv as well, so there's a lot of communication happening between farmers. And then since April, we've been doing these monthly urban farmer gatherings where we meet the third Tuesday of every month. We pick an urban farm and everybody meets there. We get a tour of the farm. We talk about some of the issues and challenges they're having, and then just talk about urban farming in general, have a bit of a potluck. So all these things are just bringing all these different projects together. We've got a master's student at UBC who's developed and executed an urban farming census for Vancouver as well. So now we can start to track, what's going on here, how many people are doing this, how much revenue is being generated, what's being sold, where is it being sold, how many people, how much land, basic census information. And what this is all sort of culminating in right now is November 25th and 26th, holding an urban farming forum here to look at land use policy and best practices. So how to continue to work with the city, who's been very supportive of what we're doing, to support urban farming, to look at, what are some more innovative and what are the innovative ways that we're using land, and then what do we as urban farmers, through best practices, offer the city. So as opposed to just asking, we're urban farmers and we're entitled to grow food here and therefore you should give us this. I personally don't believe that. I don't believe we're personally entitled to run these food businesses in the city. In a way we are, but there's a lot of conflicting interest in the city, and the current paradigm is commercial food production happens outside the city. So part of it's changing that paradigm and working with the city instead of against them is a way to do that, I think, in a more sustainable way. We could choose to fly under the radar, but if you're a business and you're successful, eventually the city's going to catch up with you because it's a complaint-based system. So if you're doing soil building, bringing in manure, composting, selling stuff from your house, whatever it is, you're going to get complaints. And so if we have policy that says we're allowed to do that, and we've got best practices that says this is how we're going to do it to not piss off neighbors and be a good part of the community, then that's going to be a big part of our success. One of the biggest challenges in a city like Vancouver is the lack of space. So Vancouver's not getting any bigger, it's just going to get more dense, which means if there's an empty parcel of land, it's likely to get developed, sooner or later. So the biggest challenge for urban farmers here is land and land tenure. So the model, there's a number of models. Like what I do, what Soul Food does, what Fresh Roots does, what Intercity Farms does, they're all a little bit different. But a common model is using residential space. So people using other people's front and backyards. And this is a good relationship. It takes the lawn out of the equation, so we're kind of doing our part to eliminate lawn from the urban landscape. And you're creating these relationships between the farmer and the homeowner. So often the farmer's growing food there, the homeowner's getting a portion of that crop as basically their payment. A lot of them tend to really like the aesthetic of having this food grown in their yard, and they're really good. It's really good community building tools, because when you're out there growing this food, there's a lot of people in the community that are coming to talk to you and get involved and are really interested, and that you can teach and learn from as well. So the future is maybe we've got a dozen or so portable farms that they're in parking lots or vacant lots, and then they've got mobile systems that can be picked up by hand or with machinery, moved to another site, so they're always temporary. So your soil stays, but your microclimate changes all the time. I'd like it to be so it's obvious that it's happening in residential areas. So you see it here and there, but when you come to the city, you see it everywhere, where front and backyards and boulevards are just, whole blocks are just food production.
Seattle is like that in some parts.
And I've heard that Portland as well. It's just, there's areas where there's so much food, it's ridiculous. So I kind of look at things like that. 5 years, it's 5 years till our next census of agriculture. I'd like to see a bunch of us did the census of agriculture this year. You are required by law to do so if you are growing and selling produce, and most people would discount urban farmers, and most urban farmers, a lot of them don't want to do the census, but you know, in 5 years, maybe one of the questions is, are you an urban farmer, or do you work within a population density of this? And then questions won't be asked in acres, they'll be asked in square feet. So, you know, I know Ward had this problem, and I had it, you know. How many acres of sprouts did you grow? Well, 0.0008 acres of sprouts. And the census isn't set up to deal with information like that. So we would see change in how we track data. So yeah, from an ecological diversity standpoint, we're always trying to diversify our crops, looking at, you know, growing different crops at different times of the year, growing a variety of crops at the same time, intercropping. Haven't made that connection before. So why not do that with, you know, that's what I like to do with my income source, and I think other people like to do that. So instead of having one job that you rely on completely for all your income, you've got several. And so if one falls through, you can replace that with something else. And what I find now is, because all my work, or most of my paid work, is in the food realm, those jobs all feed each other. So one of the things I know I'm trying to escape from in agriculture is the 70 or 80 hour work week, and multiple jobs kind of make that happen a lot of the time.
Yeah.